Welcome to the Diction Police Special Diction Unit. This video and the accompanying translation and phonetic guide are a production of Singing Diction GbR. The aria Where'er You Walk is from Semele, a musical drama by Handel, to a text by William Congreve. Music historians do not consider this an opera, as I found out to my detriment when I turned in a paper on it in opera history back in grad school, but rather they classify it as an oratorio. It was presented first for the Lenten season, in spite of the secular text and definitely non-religious storyline. This aria is sung by Jupiter, describing the paradise that Semele's sister will be transported to.
Where'er you walk, cool gales shall fan the glade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Where'er you tread, the blushing flowers shall rise, and all things flourish where'er you turn your eyes.
The one overriding topic that we have to discuss with Where'er You Walk is this linking R and how we want to approach it, because we have this in pretty much every line of the text.
Yes, it's a choice. The singer, the tenor, can opt for where'er with this linking R at some points, and then maybe later where'er you walk, so that it could be linking R or just release with a glottal on the next where without the R.
Yeah.
It's an absolute choice, and it can be very expressive in the different settings throughout the piece. It can be an expressive tool if he opts to make the linking R. Same with your eyes at the end we were looking at together. Where'er you turn your eyes, or your eyes, you know, if you link together with the linking R, it can be a linked legato phrase.
Yeah.
Or you can make a point of having it more articulated without it, without a linking R.
Exactly. Talk us through this, because there's a lot going on here. First of all, in where we have the upside down W, which I like to say way too much of.
The upside down W, yeah, it's just the unvoiced glide. Where?
Yeah.
So it should be subtle, I always say. Not too much wind in that where. Try to think of it just as an unvoiced glide and not an H before a W.
Yeah, so not hua.
Yeah. So kind of like how ñ in Italian or in French, agno or ognor. Mm-hmm. This sound is like a compression of n and y, and has a little bit of a different placement, so we don't have two sounds. This is a similar thing to that. You could think of it not as w, but sticking them together into where.
Yeah, it's the unvoiced version of the W, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then we're going to the open epsilon followed by a schwa that's really replacing the R, right? Because we don't want to say where. We don't want to head for the rhotic R.
We don't have the rhotic schwa there, no so not where, but where. Right, so that R reduces to schwa and creates a diphthong. Where.
And oddly enough, this word which is short for ever, is the exact same vowels then.
Yes, where'er you walk.
So they should really rhyme.
They should rhyme, yes.
Yeah. And then the choice is whether or not to put a flipped R, but we need all of those other vowels and sounds around it, right?
Yes, and I know it looks like a lot. To simplify things, if you were to do the linking R, I'd say minimize the first schwa. So you would have where, just give a bit of opening into the R, where, but you don't need to do where, like making a new syllable or something. It can be very, very subtle.
Well, even the second one doesn't have to be
No, that's right. Just open a bit from the and it will be enough. Where'er you walk.
Yeah, it's just a tiny bit.
Yes.
So when we have where'er you turn, and then we have your eyes, but again, we have that little schwa.
Yes, your eyes.
If we choose not to do the linking R, what do we actually say then?
Then you would have the J glide, the open O, and the schwa. Your eyes.
So we just skip the R.
Yeah, the R reduces to schwa. Whether it links on and is pronounced as a consonant or just left, it still reduces to schwa.
And if we do the glottal, then we don't want to flip the R.
Right.
Okay.
You can't have your eyes, which you hear a lot of people trying, actually, it must be said. Your eyes, that immediately makes it rhotic. And because it tends to be flipped with this style, it sounds kind of Scottish.
Yeah.
Your eyes, your, to finish a word like that.
Yeah.
It's not English, meaning from England, to finish a word that way. Not that Southern English, that RP that is the accent we're talking about. Your eyes.
Exactly. That's how we're starting and ending it, because those are the words that we hear most often in the piece. But there's a lot of other little subtleties going on in this, like where'er you walk, as opposed to walk.
Right. So that AL rounds in RP in British English to walk. And it sings nicely, especially because you come out of you and w, both of which have the forward lips. You walk. And it stays rounded in cool, which can sound really, really refreshing if you use that aspirated k and a great oo vowel, of course, that is very almost onomatopoeic, the way we feel refreshed in ooh. And what will help even more is if you stay with the forward L that we've been talking about. Cool.
As opposed to the swallowed cool.
Yeah, cool. I'm not refreshed. Cool gales shall. All three have that forward L.
Yes, and then we have that A vowel, the AE phonetic letter.
Yes, shall fan back to back. That's right.
And we really do sing that, right? It's not something that gets lost if we're trying to sing like British pronunciation.
No, those don't shift to shall, fan, or anything else. That's very artificial to do that. That should be nice and bright. Cool gales shall fan the glade.
Yeah.
Now, if you happen to have an accent where the cat vowel becomes shall fan or something, then you'll need to temper it. But it should not become shall, fan, or anything else.
Right. In the second verse, we have the word flowers set on one note.
Yes. So we need to make the triphthong happen smoothly on one note. We're not interpreting this as flowers, obviously. The blushing flowers.
So we almost skip the schwa, almost. It's just a tiny little thing, maybe.
It should sound a bit different from flowers. It's there a bit. If it weren't, it would sound a bit different.
Yeah.
As evidenced there with the way I said flowers. There's just something in there that we give a little nod to the oo and the albeit it's very minimal, but it's there. Yeah.
Exactly. And we're not looking for that sort of the schwa with that little funky, how do I say it, like the little R hook on it.
Yeah, the rhotic symbol, the rhotic schwa that goes no, that would be a rhotic pronunciation, a North American pronunciation. Yeah.
And the next line, we have two words that make a shift. As we saw with walk, we also have all with the open O.
Yes. And all, things flourish.
And this is the other one. Because I would say
Flourish.
flourish with an O.
Yeah, I would too. This is a subtle vowel shift that's very real and pretty systematic before R, where we have or where the Brits have a. So we can think of words like, well, here we have flourish. One that we see a lot in the text is hurry, nourish, hurricane. Not her, but ha.
Yeah.
Yeah, this upside down V. So a little shift, but it sounds right. And all things flourish instead of flourish.
Yeah, it's a slightly more open sound. It heads towards like but. It heads towards that vowel almost.
Yes, flourish. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about the end of the triphthong flowers, but I also wanted to make sure to talk about the primary vowel. In general in English, when we say a plain old ah, it's usually the dark ah, as in father. But this only applies when the ah sound stands alone. As part of a diphthong or triphthong, suddenly we find the bright ah in English. In flowers, crowd, and eyes, be sure that the ah sound is nice and bright. In the diphthong a, we find the closed lowercase e as the primary vowel to the open capital I. Most foreigners and a lot of native speakers try to sing this primary vowel too open, which ends up throwing the focus of the vowels out of alignment. So when saying gales, glade, and shade, be sure that the primary vowel of this diphthong is not an open one, but the closed lowercase e. The letter L can be problematic because as English speakers, we do tend to involve the back of the tongue in it. When singing in English, however, we should always try to use the Italianate L, meaning just form it with the tip of the tongue and not the back of it, L. This seems easier in words like gales, shall, blushing, and flourish, where the vowels are forward or the consonants are spoken with the lips and the teeth. With words like cool and all, since these vowels are slightly further back, the tendency is to involve the back of the tongue by accident, so these are words to keep an eye on. One rule about R's that we didn't touch on in the interview was the case of TR. Since this text is from the 18th century, we have the license to flip or roll the R's, except when it follows a T or a D. Trees where you live, and where'er you tread. We don't want to roll these R's, trees, tread, nor do we want to do the colloquial CH sound, trees, tread, but rather we use a phonetic T and the bird R sound, tr. Just be sure to keep it round and not too ish. It doesn't need to be a long consonant to get the flavor of it. And we definitely don't want to shut down the space in the mouth to make this R consonant. Think instead of saying tr, rather than tr. Think of keeping the tongue and the soft palate as far apart as you can when you say r, so that the mouth can keep some space in it. Trees, tread.
Where'er you walk, cool gales shall fan the glade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Where'er you tread, the blushing flowers shall rise, and all things flourish, where'er you turn your eyes.
This interview with Jason Nedecky was conducted by Ellen Rissinger. The accompanying phonetic transcription is by Ellen Rissinger and Jason Nedecky. This has been the Diction Police Special Diction Unit, a production of Singing Diction GbR.